So what makes a good liar? To understand the psychology behind what makes a person a really good liar, it is often attributed to their understanding of manipulating emotions and social cues of others. This can enable them to craft convincing narratives, exploit vulnerabilities, and project authenticity, making their deception extremely hard to detect. Also, habitual liars may show reduced physiological responses to stress associated with lying. This just helps in their ability to deceive effectively. I wanted to understand why and how do people in particular fields of work make lying a natural part of their work. Think people who are obviously undercover agents, you'd have to do a little bit of lying there. Sometimes military personnel have to lie, and obviously lawyers and politicians. I watched as Joe Biden made this statement at a political event, and my mind was blown at the conviction he held while saying it. Is the clip.
I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth.
Joe Biden's mentor was a man named Senator J. Caleb Boggs. You probably don't know him or remember him, but he was a senator from Delaware that took interest in Biden's political aspirations. And he also supported Biden during his campaign for political office. So we have him to thank. Biden primarily practiced law as a public defender and then later as a private attorney before entering politics as a public defender. Biden didn't really, in any traditional manner, represent any clients. I couldn't find any cases in which he won. His legal career was primarily focused on corporate and commercial law. And I think many of us know this by now, but there are still people out there that don't know this. Joe Biden did not graduate at the top of his class. He graduated from the University of Delaware in 1965 and from Syracuse University College in 1968. During his 1987 presidential campaign, Biden faced scrutiny over statements about his academic record. He admitted, he finally did, that he did not graduate in the top half of his class. He also claimed that he had finished 76th out of the 85 students. That's, if anything, the bottom of his class, and proof you don't need to be a genius to graduate from law school. Later, he also transitioned into politics, and there is no widely documented record of Joe Biden ever personally litigating and winning a lawsuit case during his legal career. Therefore, he did not have a career or a record to show if he was a good public defender or not. Joe Biden held several positions throughout his career before becoming president of the United States of America. He first started his career as a Newcastle County councilman in Delaware in the early 1970s. Then Joe Biden served as the U.S. Senator from Delaware for several decades, from 1973 to 2009. Somehow, he was chosen as the VP pick for President Barack Obama from 2009 to 2017. He was elected as the 46th president later in 2020, and obviously taking office in January of 2021. Jordan Peterson, a clinical psychologist and a professor of psychology, has often discussed the dangers of sociopathic behaviors in leadership roles. So part of why I wanted to do this video. Remember, I asked what makes a good liar. He argues that leaders who exhibit sociopathic tendencies, such as a lack of empathy, manipulativeness, and just a ruthless pursuit of power, can have disastrous consequences for societies and the world at large. Sociopathic leaders lack empathy, we all know that, and a moral conscience, making them capable of making decisions that can harm others without feeling any kind of remorse. I see this in how some policies and actions taken that are just simply cruel and unjust can harm a large amount of people. Sociopaths can manipulate public opinion really well. They are really good at deceiving people, including their stakeholders, and create false narratives to maintain and extend their power. Sociopaths in leadership positions, though, often pursue power for their own sake rather than for the benefit of the people that they're leading. And this can result in authoritarian regimes where the leader's primary goal is to maintain and consolidate power, often at the expense of individual freedoms and democratic processes. Sociopathic leaders tend to prioritize short-term gains over long-term stability and prosperity. You may have people who you work with that think this way. And it's really troubling for many people who work with these kind of short-sighted people. Their policies and how they act can sometimes yield immediate benefits for themselves and their allies, but they can lead to long-term economic and social and environmental ruin. Sociopathic leaders are more likely to create and worsen conflicts, both within their own countries and internationally. Their inability to empathize with others' perspectives can lead to an aggressive way of making decisions that are confrontational, increasing the risk for wars and other forms of violence. Jordan Peterson also emphasizes the importance of selecting leaders who possess good qualities like empathy, integrity, and just a genuine concern for other people's well-being. He argued that the presence of sociopathic tendencies in leaders can lead to the erosion of social trust, the breakdown of institutions, and ultimately the potential for widespread harm and chaos. Peterson has also discussed the impact of sociopathic individuals on society, mentioning that a relatively small percentage of people with such traits can cause a significant amount of harm. While he doesn't specify an exact percentage required to ruin mankind, he often cites the Pareto principle, or the 80-20 rule, to illustrate how a small number of people or individuals can disproportionately impact everyone else. The Pareto principle suggests that roughly 20% of the population is responsible for 80% of the effects in many contexts. Peterson also applies this idea of sociopathic behavior by suggesting that a small minority of people with sociopathic traits, potentially around 5 to 10%, can exert a disproportionately negative influence on society. He argues that if these individuals attain positions of power and influence, their lack of empathy, manipulativeness, and unethical behavior can create unrest, civil unrest, social unrest, and just complete breakdown of society. I would agree, we see much of that playing out in our society today. This small percentage, is what he's saying, if left unchecked, can potentially have catastrophic consequences. And I see that in the way that our leaders conduct themselves. I mean, it is scary to me to think we have given a lot of these leaders that are erratic and have shown that their behavior is narcissistic the nuclear codes. We have given them the ability to put their finger on that trigger and make decisions that can end mankind. Assessing whether past presidents have displayed signs of sociopathy is complex and controversial. Sociopathy or antisocial personality disorder, they call it ASPD, is only to be found by a licensed medical professional. I'm not trying to make anyone draw assumptions that Biden is a lying sociopath. I'm just saying that the leaders that I've seen on television as of late has frightened me, because most of them come off narcissistic and most of them are doing only what is in the best interest for themselves. Now, some scholars and historians have analyzed the personalities of past presidents and found traits that might align with certain characteristics of sociopathy. A few presidents often mentioned in discussions about sociopathic traits include Richard Nixon, well known for the Watergate scandal. He showed behaviors that had been described as paranoid and deceitful. Andrew Jackson's aggressive policies toward Native Americans and his forceful personality have been viewed by some as lacking empathy and overly aggressive. Lyndon B. Johnson was known for his manipulative political tactics, often referred to as the Johnson treatment. Successful leadership often involves qualities like resilience, decisiveness, and the ability to navigate complex social dynamics, which can sometimes be mistaken for negative traits. While certain behaviors of past presidents might resemble traits associated with sociopathy, it is not accurate or fair to broadly label most presidents as sociopaths without clinical evidence. But let's look at two candidates we have running for office today Are you not deeply concerned for the world when many leaders seem to have many of these traits, or at least their attitudes and demeanor when facing their constituents show their lack of care for what other people are actually dealing with? The top 1% that control everything from the food we eat to the music we consume. If we let them have control and win this, we are all doomed. And who wants to live in a country run by complete narcissists and sociopaths? Anyways, have a great day and remember to think for yourself.